Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. As we do on Saturdays, we're going to do an album review, digging through an album track by track, exploring the songs in a vacuum and their placement in the larger context of the work. I can't pronounce today's band, so I'm going to have good old Google Translate do it for me. Today we're checking out
Dold Vorde Ens Navn.
the album is Mørkere, and this is black metal. It's also a supergroup. We have members from Dodd and Vedbuenzende in here. We have 45 minutes of black metal ahead of us. The DHG connection, I hope, is going to make this a little bit more interesting and palatable for my ears. That's a subjective take. I'm not saying black metal isn't interesting. If you enjoy it, lovely. It just usually isn't my cup of tea. But DHG tends to do some interesting things, and I believe 3 out of the 4 members of this band have played in Dodd in some point of their life, whether they're past or present members. So that's an interesting little tidbit there. Let's dive into this. We kick off the album with our 2 shortest songs, just about 4.5 minutes each. Then we hit our longest, almost 8 minutes, and everything in between, or everything after that, sits around 5.5 to 6. So they're lengthier, but not the longest. I don't know what that means for breaks, analyses. We'll probably end up taking a break after every song, but that's something the future will dictate. Let's dive into this with our opening track, which you can read right there. Everything in here is in Norwegian. I'm not going to be able to pronounce most of this, so I'm not going to try. I'm lucky I got the album title. Let's dive into this and see what's going on with this album. Just all bass over here. And the double bass. Oh, not yet. And here we go into the black metal. Vocal harmonies aren't something you usually get in black metal. That was interesting. It's interesting. Got some nice external sounds going on up there. Playing these long, elongated chords. Huh. This is a sort of a punky ending. Rhythmically, anyways. Harmonically, it still has a little bit of that darkness. The offbeat ride cymbal just solidified this for me. I honestly thought it was going to roll over into the next track, which is why I didn't stop it sooner, and it just kind of abruptly ends. Not sure what's going on with that. Interesting track overall. I mean, at the end of the day, this is black metal. Unless they really step outside of this area, which it wouldn't surprise me if they did, but normally when I hear this as our opening track, it's also kind of where we're going to be. Black metal bands are usually not ones to rock the boat too much. We have 16th note picking across this entire track. Throughout most of it, we have the really quick alternating bass kick and snare drum, light cymbal work, or lightly produced either way. There's not a lot of cymbal going on in here. The bass is mostly unheard. I'm going to give a special listen to it in the next track and see if I can't pick it out, but I don't remember hearing much bass in here. And the vocals are just that sort of dry, vocal, cracky kind of thing going on. It's interesting. I didn't really. I might have made this. I might have made this comment before. Now that I think about it, but for a moment, I thought this was the first time I made this connection. The vocals here, especially at that one point when he allowed his vocals to just sort of trail off, he was holding out like a, just kind of holding that, and then just allowed it to trail out until it naturally broke off. And this is like the metal version of Billie Eilish's singing, that seemingly low effort type of vocal where it's utilizes a lot of control, solid breath support. It's definitely a high effort technique, but the end result is something that sounds so low effort. It sounds very basic. Um, and this is like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, hey, this is kind of like that pop trend going on right now. Interesting. I think really the only thing here that stands out from the crowd, I mean, that isn't something that I would just shove over into the, this is black metal, obviously, kind of pile, is the chord progressions. I think they have some interesting dyads going on in here. It paints a picture that is simultaneously a little bright, a little more hopeful than I would expect in a black metal track, but still has that darkness to it. It still has a little bit of that sorrow. Um, And, you know, I'm not saying this is the only black metal band to have done that, but I do think it's something that helps them stand out a little bit is to take a step away from that overwhelming negativity emotionally in the dyads that they create, and to take a moment and appreciate a little bit more positivity, which the positivity also comes through in the drumming in our back half. Uh, it shifts to something kind of punky in rhythm, getting rid of the alternating bass and snare speed wise and bringing it down to a halftime, still going with alternating bass kick and snare, and then eventually tossing in the offbeat hi hat to kind of give it a pop punk kind of disco-y sound. I think it's a little just a hair bit too fast for disco, but the idea is that disco loves their offbeat cymbal hits. Um, and so we kind of get this four on the floor with these accented ands, and it just it feels so bright and bouncy and poppy, and then the guitar dyads at that moment are dancing between more melancholic sounds and brighter sounds, sort of utilizing typical modes of resolution, positivity, negativity, and tension, leading tone back into uh, the full resolution and the more positive, stable sounds. I mean, it's a typical idea right here that's utilized in a lot of music, but just not usually black metal. And so we get this nice cycle of stability and positivity mixed with tension and darkness in our four chord progression. That's going on next to this like super bouncy drum work, and then this dude just like fry crackling in the background. Just it was a bizarre final 2 minutes of this track. But you know what? It's pretty rare for black metal to get a chuckle out of me, and maybe that's not what they are going for, but it's it's brightened up my reaction a little bit because yeah, man, a black metal track, even if it's like 10-15 minutes, I don't know, that's fine. I don't have too much of a problem. I don't really have much of a problem with any requests, honestly. You know, they come in, I check them out. Sometimes I find some cool stuff in it. But thinking about listening to 45 minutes of black metal is always a bit daunting. Uh, it's not my genre. No matter how many times people showcase it to me, my favorite types of black metal are the ones that steer very clear from the traditional sound. Um, and basically just take a blackened flavor with other ideas. And so this is off to a good start as far as black metal can go. I was a little worried with the opening, but the back half was fun. And fun black metal is definitely something we could use more of on this channel. There are two other things, both of them relating to the vocals, I want to talk about real quick. One is we had throat singing at the beginning, which complements black metal so well, and I'm surprised we don't hear more of it. I think primarily it's because, as far as throat singing goes and the Western world, which black metal, I know there's like really big Eastern black metal bands. We got Psy, and they're just completely reinventing the genre, it seems like every couple of years. There's probably some more that I'm unaware of, but to me, black metal is a Western thing, a very European sound, actually. And maybe it's just that throat singing has taken so long to reach that area that it's still kind of a new thing. Um, I don't know, that's just a hypothesis, but it's a sound that works so well with black metal, it surprises me it's not more common, regardless for whatever reason that is. And I'm kind of glad to hear it here. I'm not going to say it's my favorite sound, but as far as black metal goes, I think it fits a lot better than the stereotypical black metal vocals, whether it be these lower effort ones or those shrill, higher, narrower shrieks and growls that we hear in other bands. I just think it works really well. and it provides a bass range for black metal bands that, well, they never seem to want to mix the bass properly, so it fills in that area too. um I don't know, just it works pitch wise, timbre wise. I'm really surprised we haven't heard more of it, and I thought that was pretty cool. Plus we had vocal harmonies in here in the chorus, which, that was something. I'm not going to say I enjoyed that either, but it's new, it's fresh, it's novel, and I'm always down for that. Interestingly, I think my closest comparison is going to be that down-tuned, slowed, robotic sound that pop does a lot, where you'll have your vocalist in a higher range, even for female vocalists, and then you get this really robotic, rigid, metallic, deep voice underneath that harmonizes with. And of course, they're taking her voice, layering it up, and then doing a ton of modification to it. But that's my closest analogy, is that it feels kind of what pop and well, specifically electropop is doing these days. Um, it's kind of strange that in this black metal video I've made two allusions to the pop world as far as the vocals are concerned, but that's exactly what I heard when I heard that. And I'm not a big fan of the pop idea. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't for me. And this didn't really work for me. It's a combination of textures. Kind of sent a shiver down my spine a little bit. There's a lot of dissonance and, I mean, compression, natural compression, especially fry crackle, and how it works by like creating all of these sound waves and bouncing them around your soft palate until they come out in this conglomeration of unharmonious sound waves. They're all bouncing off of each other and clashing. That's what creates all the staticness to it. It's taking all of this chaos sonically and adding another layer of chaos to it in a way that feels combative, which actually makes me question why some harsh layering works well and this didn't. Because the idea of clashing sound waves and then layering more clashing sound waves on top should create clashing chaos every time. Maybe it's a production thing. Oh, another thing too is typically it's a fry scream and a growl or a lower fry that get layered. And I wonder if the perceived pitch and any sort of vocal cord layering on top of the false chord stuff is what kind of helps hone that in. Because this is primarily just the fry crackle. I don't know. That's a good question. That's vocal work, harsh vocal work, and production. The three areas that are my weakest, that I really only have a cursory knowledge of. So at best, I can only hypothesize on it. But that does make me question that. I'm going to take a moment to find some lyrics for this. We'll dig into that, and then we'll push on forward. Well, I couldn't find any lyrics for this track. It seems that the only track that has lyrics recorded anywhere is the second one, the one we're about to listen to. And I think that's because it had a lyric video where none of the others have. But I checked Metal Archives, Sonic Hits, Genius. I did a general web search. I checked Bandcamp. I kind of hoped they had their own website, but I guess bands having their own website is kind of a dying thing. They just have Facebooks now. So I got nothing. But I do have a little bit of literary information here. The band name translates out to Hide Your Name, and the album translates to Darker. So it feels real cringy, edgy kind of stuff, but it's black metal. Much like death metal, pushing ideas to the extreme is kind of it. And maybe it's just supposed to have this cringiness to it, and maybe it's not supposed to be cringe if you come at it from the right perspective, but it always seems sort of faux edgy to me. But y'all can give me your own comments on that, right? Do you find this stuff to be edgy, specifically this album and band, or is it just me because I'm sort of an outsider to the genre? Um, But yeah, so we'll have a lyrical break for the next track, and then none after that, I suppose. So with that said, let's get into this next track. Alright, so let's get into this. Keep this album rolling. Interestingly uplifting for black metal. Interestingly, I'm getting more of a post vibe than black metal on this one. The triplets on the cymbal is a nice change of pace as well, just to create a little bit of juxtaposition in the rhythmic attack. There is a bass in here. Also notice that the vocals are very pronounced, not stuffed into the mix at all. Very interesting. What is this progression? Alright. This is not standard old black metal. And I kind of don't know what to make of it. At the end of the day, it still has a lot of the shortcomings I associate with black metal. The production is fine. it's better than most, but there's still some decisions that are really off. Like there at the end during the clean singing, and we had that growl come in from the right and sort of wash over to the left. That was way too hot. That came in way too powerful. Um, Interestingly, I think the clean vocals as a whole are a bit too pronounced as well. They're very poppy. Um, they're so far above the band, and now that I say that, I don't know if I want this to be a negative or not. It's different, right? And different is difficult to digest sometimes. And I think that's what's happening here is that the ways that this are different are clashing with my understanding of the tropes of the genre. Um, so I don't know if I want to say they're too presented in the mix. They're just higher than I would expect. But I don't think that they overshadowed the guitar work. I think the guitar work was still clear and clean. The drum work was clear. I heard the bass in here. I had to listen to it. I had to seek out those low frequencies, but you can hear it in every moment of this track. So, just not quite as high up in the mix as a rock band or a progressive metal band or pop even. Pop really loves their bass, but it's present. It's again, it's a bunch of interesting decisions. Um, but this is really some of the first of its kind that I've heard. They're doing a lot of interesting stuff here, but it feels like they still have too much experience in the ways of black metal, and they're not too experienced in what they're trying to incorporate into it. So I think this is really going to be the jumping off point where bands hopefully take this sound and begin to refine and iterate upon it. Um, and really drill down until it's something that is better executed. And I think that's where I think we're on the cusp of seeing something new here. This is innovation through iteration. We're really refining down some of black metal, shaving off some of the aspects of it that are a bit harsher and less palatable for a more general audience, and bringing in some elements from stuff that's more popular. I mean, we have clean vocals in here. Have we listened to any black metal with clean vocals? Aside from spoken word and aside from like a short little snippet, it's such a rarity. Black metal is so dominated by harsh vocals, and I'm sure there's a band or two that I've forgotten that have a few cleans in it, but they did cleans for half this track. They did harmonized cleans in a black metal song. I mean, just it's iteration, but it's innovation as well. We're pushing things in a completely new direction, and it's going to be rough around the edges. I can't wait to see what people do with this format. And I don't think I want to say anything more negative about the production on this album because it's clear that they're trying. They've reached their limits, I think, of their expertise, and they tried some things that they felt were more what they were aiming for, and they missed the mark a little bit. And I don't want to take points off for that ever. Um, so I think we're gonna leave that at that. The other strange thing here is just musically, this is very positive. If we got rid of the drums and we got rid of the 16th note picking, not got rid of the drums, but lighten the drums up a little bit, rockified them. These are metal drums right here. And we got rid of the 16th note picking and just allowed these notes to exist. If you're going to have this note play for a whole bar, you strum it once, You get the whole bar's worth. You don't play it over and over and over. This is post-rock. Post-rock through a blackened lens, even harmonically. The dyads and triads at one point that we heard here, and the way that they work harmonically against the bass tone, which frequently guides the chord progression, is uplifting in a lot of cases. This is not a sound we hear too often in black metal. I really appreciate it. Uh, I'm not going to say that I think I'm going to load this album up if I'm ever looking for some upbeat, positive vibes. I think there's other bands that fit my tastes better that would give me the same ideas. But I have to applaud this. Once again, there's some black metal we've listened to that goes for more optimistic harmonic quality, but none that I think hold it so close as the primary sound. We are 2 tracks in, and there's a little bit of sorrow in our first track, but this one kind of got rid of that. The weight isn't there either, despite the constant 16th notes from the guitars and the occasional use of 16th notes in the drums, although I don't think we had any of that in this track. That was only from the first one. The production softens up the weights. It's not a wall of sound being blasted onto my ears to feel like I'm being crushed sonically. It just happens to be 16th notes because that's the rhythmic language of black metal. The production is softened, it's lightened, it allows them to play the number of notes that they play in each song without making it feel heavy. It's very interesting. I think that's going to be the key word throughout this entire video is interesting. So far, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm like, yes, I need to listen to more of this. I'll be re-listening to this album on my own. But I'm certainly at a point right now where I'm eager to get into the rest of it and see how it develops, see where they take this, see how they explore longer tracks with this idea. And in those longer tracks, do they explore any sort of dynamics? Which I think is the final thing I want to talk about. Our first song had the split, the blackened beginning and the punkier second half. This one was very static. We really didn't change much at all until the halfway point when we brought in the clean vocals, but sonically, as far as the guitars and drums and bass work went, harmonically, rhythmically, this was just one really long, repetitive song. And that's, like I said at the beginning, even though they're trying new things, it still kind of falls into the shortcomings of black metal. Shortcomings subjectively, what I tend to dislike about the genre. And a lack of dynamics is one of my biggest criticisms of it. And this is, it's falling into that same thing. We do have a little bit of sonic variation with the clean vocals at the end, but that's one part of the song. The other, we assume there's 5 instruments here, the other 80% of it, pretty much completely static. We did have a small harmonic shift in the second half of the track, moving towards a new chord progression, I think. And then we had that really interesting progression leading into the ending, the rising idea of, was that rising? I don't know. It was really interesting though. We moved away from any of the intervals that we were playing with for the rest of the track and toyed around with some new ones as we kind of had this rising intensity into the ending. But aside from these small moments, it's just very static, and I did find my mind wandering a bit in parts of that song as just things weren't changing. As I mentioned, this is the only track we have lyrics for. I'm going to take a second to go check those out. They are in Norwegian, so I have a translation for them, which means it's going to lose some of its poetic side, and maybe there'll be some stuff lost in translation on a more direct understanding level as well. So, as usual with this kind of stuff, we'll kind of take everything with a grain of salt and see where it takes us. lyrically, this track speaks about, almost seems, has anger towards somebody who just lets life go on. They make no point in their life. It says, "Dead are you who sees life come and go and chokes the days to death. Like a wounded animal with fear in all of your senses until the heart stops, or until your heart stops." The idea that you go through life so afraid of everything from birth to death that you never actually do anything, you just watch life pass you by. He calls out specific people who he believes fit into this category, such as shapers. I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to mean. Legislators, accusers, omniscients, traitors, and betrayers. He says, "Cowardice is your nature. You offer refuge in confusion with an abominable generosity. An executioner in assumed benevolence." I really like that little stanza there. But he says, in your minds, so much worse. He says there's pain in your dissonance, your brain never stops. He says there's a madness that creeps in the back there. He says, but in the heart of it all, in the heart of your mind, in the self-deception, there lurks the abstinence of lies. You have somehow deceived yourself so far that you think all of this is true about yourself, about your generosity, about your benevolence. But really, you're just a scared person. Getting through life, watching the days fly by, as you never really have an impact on anyone or anything. Now, these are exactly the kind of lyrics I expect from black metal. And interestingly, they clash so hard with the music. I don't know. Going back to the idea of the uh, band name and the album title, kind of having that edginess to it. I mean, this does too. This reeks of, the teenage kid who knows so much better than everyone else, and is calling everyone else on their out on their hypocrisy, right? It's I don't know. I Again, if anyone wants to clue me in here, is this as cringy to anyone else as it is to me? Black metal, uh, I don't know. Maybe it's just because, at least to me, black metal seems to have a lack of that self awareness that death metal kind of has. Death metal's over the top, but they kind of give a wink when they do it. Like, yeah, we know we're stupid, but we're having fun. Are you having fun? Black metal seems to take itself too seriously. Although, thinking about the music's really fun. Maybe this, I don't know. Black metal is just such a tough genre for me to crack. I understand it on the surface level, but I don't understand it at all once we get into it. With all that said, let's continue on. I'm going to check out the next track here. This is the longest on the album, sitting at close to 8 minutes. Let's dive into it and see what's going on.
Det falt et lys i min mørke krok. Gjennom ødets fallende vei mot lindring.
This is infinitely more interesting to me. than the previous two tracks. And it really leans into what black metal does well, which is harmony. Oh, man. Yeah. This is gorgeous. Volume dynamics, multiple melody lines, moving foundations, rhythmic dynamics. This is so good. I like their harmonies here too. Working with something a little less stable, maybe a fourth. A little bit of dissonance there, some intonation stuff, but I think it's tasteful. It works so well for the section. And I love the falsetto. I didn't talk about that in the last song, but it's a really nice touch. And we went from that one bar, repeat, and the punctuation. They went to like some of the most cliched rock writing. We're dynamically stunted on volume, width, voicings or timbre, harmony. We have a one-bar progression. It's the complete inverse of how we started. Deer and Gray. That's what these vocals remind me of. This is a neat little section though.
alle stemmer seg omkring. Vi er de levendes budskap til de døde. Virker som det vonde bølgeskudd, men aldri dør. Merkelig blir løgnen bare enda mer sannheter. Men hvorfor håpe, og hvorfor tro, når bare gammel gift vil gro?
Oh, they gave the bass the final moment there. That's interesting. Y'all already know what I'm going to say with this. The metal was fine. They explored some neat ideas. There's that piano line in the middle somewhere. We had the dual vocals, the vocal harmonies throughout in some places. And the core riff was groovy. Even if I hated the juxtaposition of its inclusion against where we started, I gotta say that the 5 minutes of metal that make up this track were fine on their own. Not what I would usually go for, but I don't think there were any problems with it in particular. It really is my biggest gripe that they tease me with this phenomenal writing that showcases all of the dynamic qualities and exceptional composition individually and layered, how everything works together, that I would love to hear more of. It doesn't even necessarily need to be the classical instrumentation and production that we have there. Give me some of this layered dynamic writing in the metal, and they just don't. So it feels like a tease, like, hey, we heard you were complaining about this album's dynamics, check this out. And I'm like, yes, this is beautiful. And they slap me in the face. They're like, that's not what we're here for. Let's listen to more metal. And I know that it's not fair of me to expect that kind of writing in the album, right? It's a black metal album. That's not what the genre does. But I also think it's not very fair for them to give me what I want and take it away from me so quickly. Why would you do that to me? Regardless, though, on a less comical note, I really appreciate getting to hear this side of them, though. I think DHG has some stuff like this in their music, which is probably why their name is sort of at the top for more standardized black metal for me, because they do incorporate more elements like this into their music. But it is nice to hear this side, because one of the strengths of black metal and black metal bands is harmony and subsequently atmosphere. I think a lot of these bands do a really great job at exploring harmonies that a lot of metal doesn't. I mean, I don't think it's an oddity that black metal has more Baroque influence in it than most other genres, and it's because Baroque can be a very atmospheric theme and variation driven genre. And while black metal doesn't incorporate all of it, they're really fond of Baroque chord progressions, and we get some really cool harmonic ideas in black metal. And so I love hearing bands showcase this side of their composition that I think they feel that they can't include into their music at large. That it just doesn't quite fit into that black metal sound that their fans are expecting, or maybe that comes more naturally to them. And this is more of a, hey, I wrote this, and now if I want to write something like it again, I have writer's block for 2 months, I don't know the situation, but I really appreciate getting to hear this side of these bands because I know a lot of them are capable of it. It shows in their chord progressions, in the writing of their two guitars, the dyads, the mixed lines, the counterpoint. We hear a lot of this in black metal. We just don't get to hear it cranked up to 11. And so I do really appreciate the opening, even if it felt like I was being teased a little bit. And I would love to hear more of it on the album, not necessarily just by itself, but like I said, incorporated into the general metal sound. And we kind of had that a little bit on track 2, I think it was, where we had the third guitar come out of nowhere. I enjoyed that. I wish we would have more triple guitar work in here. But aside from that, I don't really have much else to say about the track. The opening 2 minutes were gorgeous in so many ways, and the last 5 minutes did what they did well. It's more black metal. We did get some neat harmonies. We had a piano moment in there, which I thought was nice, just expanding the dynamic range of the track a little bit. But it was all honestly just more blackened rock. Which is interesting too. It blackened rock because it really didn't bring any of the metal aspect to it. The drums kind of stayed chiller. The guitars were softer and they didn't have that fuzzy edge to them sonically. And they really didn't have really harsh articulation either. Which is it's the way that you present the note, how hard or soft it is. Like a tut 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 or a da da da. I got that harshness and soft. That's articulation. So yeah, it's kind of a softer track overall. I will say this though, 3 songs in and they've all been fairly distinct, which is really big praise for black metal. Usually my understanding of the genre is that the difference between any number of tracks is going to be a bit more on the minute area. It's going to be nuanced changes. And these have had very different identities to them. Even just as far as the fact that our first track was really the only one with a pure black metal section to it, with the alternating snare and bass and the 16th note aggression and the heavy harsh vocals. They've all sort of have done their own thing. So let's check out where we're going next with track 4. Sitting about 79 beats per minute. Quite a bit on the slower end, but not Doom level. Speaking of Baroque,
mitt indre vesens vansen, hvor du velsignet stygge, ser i nattgått med lys og skygge.
A 4-chord progression that takes up 16 bars. Just really allowing each of these chords to be fully explored. The guitar tones feel like they belong more in thrash than blackened right here. Like, this is some straight up Megadeth moment. You know, I thought that was a fade out. It's very subtle though. I had a lot of positive comments for that one. Individual moments and sections and ideas I think worked rather well. And we're halfway done with the album, and I'll say that they're doing a fantastic job of both subverting and expanding upon the black metal sound. I think it's very clear to see that that's a foundation for them, but this is post black metal a term? Do we have that yet? That's honestly what this feels like. We're taking the sounds of the genre and exploring it in different directions. I wouldn't really say many sections of this don't have a blackened component, but I also find it difficult to call a lot of this black metal, which is, from my understanding, the definition of first wave post punk. It was punky, it took the ideas of punk and the sound of punk, but went in very different directions where it was difficult to say that, hey, this is punk music. It just feels punk, and that's what this is. It all feels blackened. There's certainly metal sections here, but some of this is straight up rock as far as the composition is concerned. We have classical in here. We have a ton of ideas that I've already mentioned. The harmonies, the dual vocals, the bass presence, the rhythmic shifts that just aren't staples of the genre. It's very cool, I think, to experience this in real-ish time. This is the debut album from this group, and it came out in 2021, November of 2021. It's not even 2 years old yet. It feels cutting edge. Rate Your Music has this classified as black metal or melodic black metal, with a touch of dark folk, but I think post black metal is honestly what this should be. And like I said, so I have a lot of positive remarks about the way that this track takes the blackened sound and explores in different directions. I gave a lot of those comments during the reaction. So I just wanted to mention that to balance this out, because I am going to go a bit hard into the ending, which I thought was neat to start with. Anyways, I liked the guitar tone on that final riff. I mentioned that it felt more at home in a thrash band, and I still stand by that. But it was neat to hear that sort of cutting guitar tone instead of the wider, fuzzier guitar tone that black metal tends to like to have, while still doing this black metal idea. The 40-second crossfade was kind of neat too, because we crossfaded into the exact same riff, just with a different guitar tone. Just a very interesting idea, and we went into something a bit fuzzier, more blackened. It felt more atmospheric. And then we brought in the ooze, and yeah, just a bunch of oddball decisions here that I think ultimately wind up creating something interesting, but that I don't quite understand why they were chosen, past simply being interesting. Like the flow of the track, I think, kind of halts here. The idea is neat, but I don't know that it serves the track, the song itself, too well. And then we do this atmospheric vocalization over 16th note picking for a little bit, crossfade it back into an abrupt stop, and then do our opening black metal aggressive thing again. I don't think it works. It's neat. It's interesting. I think there's better ways to have gotten back to our A section. And it just feels like the song stalls. We were chugging along so well. We had some interesting ideas. They were blending into each other. There's a nice flow to everything. The structure was working well. And then the car just quits. We kind of start chugging, and then it just stops. We kind of spin our tires for a little bit. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me. But again, I think this might just be growing pains. As I mentioned, anytime we enter into a new phase of things and you're at the forefront of a sound, there's going to be, I don't know if I want to say there's going to be mistakes made, but there's going to be decisions that are not as optimal simply because you're treading new grounds. Eventually, people will come along and find a better, safer, faster way to make the same journey you did. but you were the one who did that journey first. And I think this is one of those ideas that it's neat on paper. The execution was a bit odd, and it ends up feeling like something else should have been put there instead, but I don't want it removed because I think some of those imperfections are key to being at the forefront of a sound. Alright, we're going to move on. It feels weird knowing there's lyrics and then not diving into them. Going on to track 5 here. Oh no, don't do this to me again. Don't give me hope. No, keep it going. It lives on in spirit. It's the same melody, at least we've just lost a lot of the flourish. That was a fun fill. Now that's neat. Yeah, let's go, drummer. Oh, okay. Oh, they're gonna use it to bookend. Okay, I'm fine with that. We get another shot at this sound. A couple of things clicked with me on this track. First of all, I really appreciate their use of the black metal sound, the aggressive 16th note picking, the either double bass kicks or the alternating snare and bass idea on the drums. This core black metal sound is used sparingly. I think this is the wrong song to bring this up because this one used it more than any other track on the album so far. But aside from this one, it's used sparingly, and even here we will do it for 32 bars or so, and then we'll take a break from it. The guitars never really get off of that 16th note idea, although they do move to a more legato picking, which makes it feel like they're allowing these notes to be held out. But the drums frequently back away from this aggressive drumming style for rock style, for upbeat punk style, for tom heavy fills that we hear in this track. The drums are always changing up the feeling, the rhythmic feeling of the tracks in a way that I think works very well. It does create a dynamic element that I think black metal needs, and I don't think I've given them credit for in this review so far. It's not as dynamic as I prefer my music to be, but it is more dynamic than black metal tends to be, where the 16th note is kind of king, and you really don't stray away from that much at all, and they do a pretty good job of getting away from that often and saying, what if we have syncopated notes? What if we put a triplet on top of our 16ths to create a rhythmic juxtaposition? What if we switch off to quarter notes? And the drummer's always finding new rhythmic ideas to play with. That's not to say that it's proggy and that we're experiencing legitimately new sounds, but just that we don't stick with a rhythm for very long. There's usually a moment where he says, okay, that's enough of that, let's bring something else in. And he has his bread and butter, right? There's really only 3 or 4 ideas that the drummer plays around with primarily, creating variation on those ideas, but it is something new around the corner in most tracks. And I appreciate that. I might get some flack for this. This song in particular, which is surprising to me given that I just said it's the one with the most black metal moments in it, actually has some really cool sections. There's a chorus in here, that wall fitting into that traditional aggressive 16th note idea from the drums and the guitars. The harmonic quality fit really well with the energy, and I enjoyed that moment, and I kind of enjoyed the tom run that came after it the second time through, and I kind of enjoyed the bridge that was going on in here. A lot of it still harmonically, but rhythmically I think the drummer came into some really interesting ideas here. And there was one section in particular, and I wish I could remember what it was, where I was like, oh, this drum pattern's a bit post-hardcore. Not entirely. I don't think I'd ever say that he had a post-hardcore influence. It was more of a variation on the the quarter note rock idea he has. But it kind of put me in that mindset. And I came to the idea that musically, I'm not too much against this. It's fine. I might even put on the album if it were instrumental. The vocals are my big hurdle. They're not bad in any way. In fact, I've praised a lot of the vocal work in here. It's just a timbre that I don't quite enjoy. And that's not a dig at either of the vocalists. Just not a big fan of lower vocals, usually. And it made me think, what if we got some whiny emo vocals on top of these same exact songs, same exact lyrics even? Just give me some nasally, higher ranged vocals on this, and I began to think I might enjoy that a lot. I don't know, like let's get Gerard Way up here and do a vocal cover on these, and I think it would sound fantastic. Maybe that's just me. And of course, as usual, no shade on the vocalist. It works fantastic for what they're aiming for. But I do wonder what that would sound like. In my head, it sounds pretty cool. So yeah, I think I touched on everything I wanted to there. I'm kind of coming around to their use of black metal occasionally, less occasionally, more occasionally in that song, I suppose. And there's some parts that are beginning to work for me. I really dig the harmonic composition of this group, and well, I do kind of wish that they would apply that writing to a different genre. But you know, it's not for me to tell an artist what kind of art to make. So I'm just gonna sit here and keep mildly enjoying this one, as it's not up my alley, but it's doing a lot better than most Black albums do as far as my personal tastes go. Let's kick it with track 6. I do kind of dig this melody though. Not where I would have taken it, but I like it. Where are we going? Love the falsetto. Y'all can hear some emo vocals over this now, right? Not just me. Slowly pitch matching, that was nice. I do really like this riff. I wish it looped back into itself a little smoother, but it is still sick. The extra reverb here really complements the atmosphere. That lift was really nice coming into this section. I do find it funny, as soon as I wanted to praise the lack of typical black metal writing, we've had two songs that heavily use it. Just gonna roll over to the next. Oh yeah. I love plucked violins. I wonder if they're going to keep the 3 whenever we get to the metal. So rich. Yes, yes, finally. The marching snare is an interesting choice for this too.
Fullt av savn. Natten hvisker. Mørket trøster. Og flytter inn.
Yep. Yes, 100%. Where is more of this? The writing is gorgeous. We have all the uses of dynamics, especially in the sections without the metal side of things, which tend to bring the volume up to just max all the time. But we do have volume dynamics in our intro. There are all sorts of width dynamics, timbre dynamics, interline dynamics, where the violins, even though the guitars might be just full volume all the time, really flatlining that volume bar I keep over there. The violins will have these volume swells, starting quiet and getting louder as they move up their runs. It's just layered. It's gorgeous. It has this massive epic vibe to it. Once we bring in the marching snare idea on the drums, it comes full swing. We got these really big, powerful bass drums. It sounds like they're using concert bass drums here, though it could also just be some effects on the bass kick. But it's what we heard at the end, the boom, boom, boom. Just these really big, powerful, meaty drum sounds. There's some cello work in there in the end that was just gorgeous. Kind of sitting at the lower end, creating a sort of like a rhythmic juxtaposition to some of the stuff that's going on. And then out of nowhere, it does that for like 8 bars, where it's just kind of these little ornamental ideas. And then it transitions like the last 2 rhythmic hits of their concept into this moving line that goes up until it reaches about an octave higher and goes into a lead melody that's counter melodying the violin that's over here on the right. And it's so good. And of course, underneath all this, we have this 16th note idea on the guitars going on that it brings this metal edge to everything. It gives it this animosity that is sort of hinted at harmonically in the string section, but really comes to fruition here in the sound of this instrument, this electric guitar. And it is just so good. I think my real only complaint with it is that it's honestly only a 2-minute section that gets repeated pretty much word for word, beat for beat in the second half. I don't think there were any changes there. Maybe there are lyrical changes, which unfortunately we can't dive into. But yes, see, they have the capacity for this now, which means I feel more comfortable requesting more of it. Before, it's just like they've always kind of done an oil and water thing with their classical writing, their metal writing. It's not fair for me to ask for more of something they're not already delivering. But here, they made the mistake of saying, look, we can do this. And I get that glint in my eye Ting. Well, please give me more then. I do, though. This was gorgeous. I just, structurally, it was their least interesting. I put this in line with track number 2, which was just one idea all the way through. At least this jumped between the pure classical side and the metal with classical ideas on top of it. We got a little bit of that. We got a little bit of this up and down going on as far as volume goes, but the second half was a complete copy paste of the first, and I would have loved to hear something like that 8-minute epic from track 3 with all the ideas that they went through, even though I think that did follow more of a traditional structure of calling back verses and choruses throughout it. It still had a lot of ideas presented in a fashion that I felt was really fun to go through. And here they use this idea that I've been secretly wanting and put it in their least structurally dynamic song. And I would love, and I understand, like I'm asking for them to probably take twice as much time on every song they create. I'm not saying that this would be easy, but to apply this same idea of putting these strings tastefully as expansions of the metal side on more of their dynamic writing, stuff that we saw in their longer tracks. So I think that's wholly a positive take. It's so good, I want more of it. And my criticism is that there's not enough on the album. Or that this song didn't deliver enough of it to me. As usual, like I've said in the past, it's better to leave your audience wanting than for them to be done with what you're doing. And, you know, as much of it is a criticism to say I would like to have more of this, that's honestly one of the best things you can end up doing, is something so well that the audience is like, why did you stop? So I'm not expecting more of that on this final track. It would be really nice to experience that, but I'm kind of expecting that to be a one-off. But I am kind of looking forward to another album if they make one. This is a super group after all. They do have other bands that I believe are probably their primary bands. I don't know much about many artists. Many of the people who make up bands, I don't know much about their lives. I assume that being a supergroup, though, this is a side project. But if they make a second album, I would like that track to be the template for it, instrumentally, and probably something like track 3 or 4 to be the template for it structurally. And just marry the two and give me these beautiful long tracks that go through so many ideas and incorporate some of this Baroque influence that obviously is here in the band on top of your post-black metal thing that you've got going on. It's going to be phenomenal. It might be one of the first black metal albums that I add into my library if they could pull that off. Because in my mind, kind of makes me want to try it. I don't know if I have the chops to write black metal. I should give it a shot, though. It's just atmosphere, right? You write a bunch of whole notes, dyads, and then later on you chop them up into 16th notes. It's all about the progression of the dyads. Black metal drums are repetitive. I wouldn't have any cool black metal drums like the drummer from Ungwa does. I could try. I mean, that dude's just, it's just natural. It's just built in. That's something that comes natural. I'm not a really good rhythmic writer. I could take a jab at that in the classical side. I think I've proven a couple of times that I've got the chops. Maybe I could do that. Maybe I could make this black metal album, bring it into existence that nobody else seems to want to do. Bryan's version of black metal. Bryan metal. We're getting way off topic here. Let's dive into this final track here and see what's going on, how they're going to wrap this up. I'm made a little uncomfortable. Please stop breathing in my ear. like that though. We've heard that a few times, where he will vocalize alongside the guitar line, same pitch, same octave, just kind of texture layer. I think it works really well in some of these moodier sections.
Mitt hjerte er så sykt, som stadig snur i kald forhånd.
Yeah, okay.
Og vandrer fredløst mellom sorte lag. Mitt ansikt skjelver når det speiler uroen i mitt selvbedrag. Gjennom drømmevirket høres dødsmusikk, en sår melodi, hvor ordene smelter og glir.
Alternating snare and bass still, but one per bar.
Rastler slår sin bølgende tann, halvveis bundet og halvveis fri, faller de ensomt mot sin skjebne, og spiller ut sin siste akt. Tyngden av 1000 fortidsdrømmer, som aldri gav sin glede, og forsonet seg.
I kind of like the guitars being brought down in the mix for this section too.
Som evig bær på hjertets rygger, var det ikke det jeg visste. Vi tærer tomt på egne laster til det siste. Når røde tanker er rotfast bundet, når mindre kommer og mer enn år. Fjernt velter de seg der ute, en livsfjern fest, mens festen pågår.
Yeah.
Som stadig lyver, men er trofast likevel. Væpner en utålmodig munn som bygger et langhav. Og gir etter til syndens lære, for sin egen frihet mot i morgen. Tyngden av 1000 fortidsdrømmer.
This is the peak of the album, and they ditched the violins. Why? I really hope they decide to bring them in. No. Okay. I suppose maybe they want to end the album out on a bit more of a somber note. I take this. Beautiful. A fade out into a fade out. Or I suppose they faded into the outro, which was a fade out itself. Hey, what are you doing? I hit pause. I will never get over why Spotify feels like they need to queue up something else after I'm done with an album. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. If you're on Discord, you already saw my rant about that. Let's stick to the music here. Beautiful track. Honestly, gorgeous. I still think they should have went for the violins sitting up top at the end of their peak. They had everything set to do it. And honestly, they could have reused that same violin line they had for the quieter section prior to it. Put it on top, it would have sounded great. And they decided not to, which I think is fine. Maybe it's because we just got done listening to track 7, which was just a beautiful showcase of the metal and the classical, and I wanted one last taste of it. But I still think it would have provided the peak for the entire album to end on. But in a vacuum, I think it's fine as a single song. And the last track of the song doesn't necessarily need to be the peak of the whole album. It's not like this is a concept album. I don't think. Well, I mean, I haven't dug into the lyrics, so I don't know if it is or isn't. But it's still the last thing you hear on the album, and I think having that massive height would have just solidified everything in the experience. But I do appreciate the idea of bringing it back down. I was figuring they were going to end on the high note, and they decided to bring it down to these 2 guitars there at the end, and I loved that. That was a fantastic way to go about it, and so much better than what I was expecting. Although it did bring about one more criticism. The right guitar there at the end, beautifully linear. The entire idea had 0 repetition in it, and that was kind of one of my biggest gripes throughout here, is that a lot of the melodic passages are on the shorter side and end up getting looped. Even one of the longer ones that I enjoyed, what was that, track 6's guitar riff, the metal one, the 16th note picking on it. I really love it. I even mentioned during the song, I wish it looped back in just a little cleaner. It ends up dipping down pretty low, then making this big jump up, like, I don't know, an octave and a quarter up to the beginning note again to start over. It's just, it doesn't smoothly get back into itself. And I would have preferred an adaptation, a variation on it, where maybe you take the same idea, but you start down here where you're at, and when you come back up and you come back down, instead of dipping all the way down, you stop at where the first basic theme starts, so you can smoothly move into that. Like, it's small ideas, I think, that even if they're not going to write purely linear melodies, to still extend out and get extra usage out of something you've written. Again, there's nothing really extra to that. You're going to copy paste what you did, shift it down, pitch shift it down to like an octave or so, and then just change some of the notes so that your rising and your movement leads you back to the beginning. It's very, very little work on that part, but greatly extends the feeling and usage of this riff. And they write some beautiful melodies in here, and they just end up being short and repeated. And I think it would be really cool to hear them extend these ideas out just a little bit more. And as usual, it was something I didn't bring up because they didn't present themselves that way. And then we end the song with this gorgeous, like 64 bar guitar line, just pure linear. And I'm like, yes, I want more of this. And I know if we add in linear melody writing everywhere and orchestral elements on every song, we're like tripling the workload on this track, on this album. And maybe that's not what they want to do. Maybe that's not who they are. Maybe that's not the type of art they want to make. And that's all perfectly fine. But I found I enjoyed a lot of stuff here when they decided to go that route, even if it was just for a section or an idea. With all of that said, this is some pretty good blackened style metal adjacent stuff. It still feels kind of weird to call much of this black metal, although they did slip into more traditional sounds there in, how was it, like tracks 5, 6, and 8. Kind of had a bit more of that. Oh no, not 8. 4, 5, and 6 was that right there in the middle, wasn't it? They kind of slipped a little bit more into that sound, but generally, like I said, post blackened, I think, is where I would put this. It kind of encapsulates a lot of that blackened feeling and sound without actually working with the black metal composition too often, and I found that worked really well for me. Like a lot of proggier blackened projects, I enjoy that they're taking these ideas of black metal and just presenting them in different fashions. I appreciated the wider vocal presence. We had multiple types of harshes, multiple cleans, layered them up in different ways. We had the classical sections, which bring about a vastly dynamic change to the composition of the album in ways that create moments of reprieve from the onslaught of 16th notes and constant volume levels. And just overall, I kind of enjoyed some of the textures and atmospheres they created in some of these. I enjoyed some of the licks. I mean, overall, again, I don't know that I would go out of my way to toss this album on, but as far as black metal goes, I wouldn't mind listening to it again. And that is high praise for a black metal album. And there's even some traditional black metal sections in here that clicked for me. So they're doing something right. I had a lot of criticism for this one, but it's primarily because, from my own subjective perspective, there are some faults here being made as they attempt to transition into something new, and I feel like they're right on the cusp of doing something I would really like. And so my criticism comes from a place of love because I really want to see them make what I think is here. There's quite a few areas where I think it's a little rough around the edges, but there's a ton of potential to expand this sound into something phenomenal. And so while it may seem that I was extra harsh on this, I do want to let everyone know that I quite enjoyed my time listening to it, and I was only harsh because I want it to be what they want it to be, or what I perceive they want it to be, which I think really is the next step in black metal. Might be a step backwards for some. This is certainly a more palatable sound of black metal, but I feel like every style of music, no matter how harsh, eventually gets softened up to become more palatable until it becomes something listenable by many. And I'm sure the true cult black metal listeners aren't going to really enjoy this album, save for maybe track 5, which I think was like pure black metal throughout. But I think it's going to bring a lot of people into the sound and may even be the bridge album that gets them into more traditional black metal. So that's always a good thing. Those are my thoughts on this band's album, Mørkere. Again, I can't pronounce the band, but I enjoyed my time with this. I'm curious what you all thought. I just saw the caption save this as Medicare instead of Mørkere. It did it again. That's pretty funny. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this? Did you enjoy it? Is anything that stood out to you? Do you have your own perspective or opinion on it? Let me know down in the comments section. Above the comment section, there's a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It takes you here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have a live stream. Everyone is welcome to join. There are no live requests. Everything is pre-selected by the patrons, but the conversation has been really nice, having a very full crowd there. That's not to say we don't have a lot of patrons, but it's a very specific window of time that isn't great for everyone. So some days are certainly better than others, but allowing more people in tends to have more lively conversation, and more conversation is better since we're all sort of exploring a lot of music together. And then Monday, we'll dive into next week, which is the open no theme week. We'll kick off with some stuff I've been wanting to check out. Monday, and then Tuesday, we'll look at some comment requests. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening.